Warning, this video contains math. Don't say I didn't warn you. Hey, how's it going, guys? TND coming back at you. So Destiny is a game with what I would call light RPG mechanics. There's of course the leveling system, but it's not super important. There's buffs and debuffs, but even those are limited. And then there's your character's base stats. These 6 numbers play a key role in making your builds as optimized as they possibly can be, with the top of the mountain being this right here, triple 100 stats. And you want to know how to get them. Well, step in, let's get talking about it. Take your shoes off first, though. We'll start very basic by talking about what each stat is and why you'd even want to spec into it. You see, every stat in the game is based on a tier system. Every 10 points gets you up to the next tier, maxing out at tier 10 or 100 points. Unfortunately, there's no rounding up here, so a 69 stat is just as useful as a 61 stat. Same goes for overleveling, as having 130 in a stat is basically the same as having 100 itself. Build crafting when it comes to stats is all about optimization in this regard. For triple hundreds, you'll need 3 of the 6 stats to be at tier 10, and the others aren't going to be looking so hot, but we'll take that, no problem. Starting with mobility, this stat is tied to the hunter class abilities, with higher tiers decreasing base recharge rate. It also gives slight buffs to player walking and strafe speed, as well as your general jump height. Unless you're a min-max PvP player, you're really not going to want to focus on mobility, at least if you're not a hunter, that is. Resilience is by far the most important of the 6 stats in terms of its effect on the general PvE gameplay experience, as a tier 10 roll gives an unreal 40% blanket damage reduction to all incoming damage. For reference, the mod Protective Light, which was so good pre-nerf that it was practically mandatory in any endgame content, guess how much of a damage reduction that was? Also 40%, and that was only after hitting red bar while charged with light. Resilience is super overpowered compared to the other base stats right now that I'm frankly hesitant going all in on resilience gear, since this has to be nerfed sometime soon, right? Oh, and it also reduces the class ability cooldowns for Titans for you punchy boys out there. Next is Recovery, a very useful base stat where tier 10 allows your health to regenerate faster, thus making general survivability much more accessible if you're able to stop taking damage for a few seconds. It's incredibly useful, and before the giant resilience buff, everyone was just speccing into Recup first for endgame PvE stuff. It also handles the Warlock class ability cooldowns. Keep these first 3 stats in mind for now. Think of them as a little fire team. We'll get back to that in a moment. The next 3 stats are less glamorous, I'm not gonna lie. They're also fairly situational as to which one to spec into, and it may vary build by build, so keep that in mind. First is Discipline, which lowers your grenade's base cooldown as the tiers get higher. There are no shortage of strong grenade builds in the game right now, so oftentimes you'll see Discipline as one of the triple 100 stats for this reason. Intellect lowers your super cooldown at higher tiers. This is certainly useful as a base stat, but honestly there are more efficient ways to gain super energy, either through orbs or exotics, so generally any stats here are pure gravy. Finally, we have Strength, which is like Discipline, but for melee cooldowns instead of grenades. There are some melee builds out there, but most either involve hunters, which get their melee back from Gambler's Dodge, or bonk titans, which don't need to worry about cooldowns, mostly. Now before we go ahead and build some triple hundreds, it's time to talk armor rolls. You see, legendary armor pieces, while seemingly random sets of 6 numbers, do in fact drop with specific stat distributions. These distributions to be specific. Say hello to the plug spreadsheet. This mess you see in front of you is every possible stat roll for legendary armor in Destiny 2. As you can see, it's broken up into 2 sections: mobility, resilience, and recovery, as well as discipline, intellect, and strength. These 2 groups of 3 are tied together, so their cumulative stats can only be so high on a single piece of armor. The way the spreadsheet works is you pick 2 plugs from the first group, then 2 from the second group, and boom, you have your stat roll. There's a few things you'll notice here, first being that 68 is basically our ceiling for total stats, 2 is the floor for a single stat, with 30 being the highest, and most importantly, the highest for 2 stats in a linked group with each other is 22 and 10, with the third being 2. So a great roll on a piece of gear would look something like this: 2, 22, 10, 30, 2, 2. So that's it, right? Just find 4 pieces of gear with that exact distribution and you're good to go. Well, not exactly. I'm afraid we need to go further down the rabbit hole a bit. Real quick though, if you want to see the best way to farm high stat armor that can be done solo and painlessly before Lightfall, check the description of this video once this one's done. I promise it's worth your time. Now say hello to my little armor theory crafting station. To my knowledge, there is no tool that does what I'm trying to do with this little guy here, so let me break it down. On the right, you'll see the optimal stat distributions for each group of 3 as a reference. So say you're in a situation where you have a really good piece of gear, say a 2-2 29-29 2-2 leg piece like this, really good piece of gear, nearly perfect. And let's say we have a 2-9 21-26 2-6 helmet like this one. Solid roll, but could be better for sure. But let's make that our base. You can see that we're about halfway there to a solid double 100 build. Triple 100s are going to take some work, so let's see what we can add from our optimal plugs here on the right. So here's where we stand. Our base stats aren't all base 68s, but I'll take it. We have one stat at 100 so far, with 3 resilience mods getting us to double 100s. However, we only have 2 more armor mods to work with at plus 10 apiece, which means even in our best case scenario, we can only get to 10-10-9 on our gear. It seems at the moment, these armor pieces, while good, aren't good enough to get triple 100s on their own. Now this is the point of the video where I lost my mind a bit, because let's theorycraft the absolute best armor possible, knowing that we want 100s, but nothing higher than 100 so we don't get wasted stats. I thought, hey, those pieces I started out with aren't perfect. Let's create the god roll of all god rolls when it comes to stat distributions. And as you can see, I still couldn't get triple 100s. What is going on here? Am I dumb? Did I forget to carry a 1 somewhere? Well, let's check our work. 68 times 4 plus 60 is 332. The lowest any stat can be right now is 18, so we have 278 stats left over to use. No way to make triple 100s without armor mods, looks like. You could theoretically make double 100s, but again, due to the plugs chart and the math involved, that third stat simply cannot make it to triple 100s. But I can see your comments already. But I see triple 100s all the time. Look at all the YouTube videos saying easy triple 100 builds. Luckily, there's more to work with than just what you see here. First is that exotic armor, which you probably will be using for your builds. Take this chart and wipe their ass with it, as not only can they roll over 70 total base stats, but they can also roll spiky stats that legendary armor simply cannot. Next up are the combat mods. Powerful Friends and Striking Light both give plus 20 mobility and strength respectively when another arc mod is slotted on your gear. If you're a hunter, this is huge for filling out a build of mobility, resilience, and recovery triple 100s. And finally, there's stat bonuses tied to subclass fragments, and there are a bunch, so I won't go over each individually right now, but that plus 10 in the right spot is what personally helps elevate many of my builds to triple 100s. So that's a lot to take in, and again, I'm sorry about the math involved, but just imagine there was a place where you could, I don't know, sync all of your armor rolls to filter through the best ones, and then also take into account things like Powerful Friends or resilience mods or subclass fragments. I mean, if something like that existed, you probably wouldn't need an entire video going. So here's D2 Armor Picker. This tool is the be-all, end-all for build crafting in Destiny 2 in my opinion, and it is the place to start anytime you see a cool build video on YouTube and want to try to make it yourself. So let me walk you through it. Let's say we want to make my Stasis Warlock build. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and check Assume All Legendary Items are Masterworked. I usually check the same for exotics, but if you know you simply aren't, probably best to leave it unchecked for now. Yes, assume class items are masterworked. I would leave this one unchecked because you never know what gold is sitting in your vault sometimes. This tool will surprise you, I promise. Then we'll check optimize wasted stats, because why not? And move on up to our subclass. Check our 4 fragments in this particular build, and you can see there are some juicer stats we're adding. Don't sleep on fragment bonuses, I'm telling you. Nothing for combat mods, but here's where you would add Powerful Friends and the like, then pick our exotic armor, in this case the Osmiomancy gloves, and now we're gonna play the slider game. Set everything to tier 1, since again, 18 is generally our floor. I'm going to pick 100 resilience to start, and you'll see how it starts filtering builds on the right here to match my standards. As you can see, I am now capped at 80 for my maximum mobility. I cannot get double 100s in those 2 stats as is. Now if I scroll down and add Powerful Friends, now I can. So there are ways to kind of power your way through into triple 100s when your armor isn't perfect, I promise. Now I want resilience, recovery, and discipline at tier 10. Awesome, easy. Let's fill out our max intellect stat next, then strength. That leaves us with 2 build options. As you can see, this first build has a chest piece that I don't even have masterworked. That thing was probably gathering dust on my vault and I didn't realize what I had. But this second build here has all currently masterworked gear, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy dim query to clipboard and then hop over to dim. If you're not familiar with dim or want to see some cool ways to optimize loadouts in the program, leave a comment down below because there's some cool stuff you can do with this app. We're going to paste in the search bar here, and it's gonna look like a mess, but if you look at your character, the 5 pieces for the build are now highlighted. Equip those to your character and then hop in game and equip all your mods. Once you're done, you'll have a brand spanking new triple 100 build ready to take into the next day 1 raid race. Looking pretty good, not gonna lie. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this one. Let me know any other details you'd like regarding this process. I'm absolutely down to make follow-up videos helping you guys through this mess in any way that I can. I do have links to D2 Armor Picker, Destiny Item Manager, as well as that little spreadsheet thing that I made. They will all be in the description of this video. I do have a community Discord server where me and my gang of nerds just hang out and talk about movies, gaming, and generally all things nerd, you are more than welcome to come and join us. Links are in the description as well. Anyway, that's all from me for now, y'all. Happy hunting, Guardians.